Madden holiday is here and we will play all night. Calling sick and sound sincere, in tackles will delight. The fridge is packed with drink and meat, the taste of victory sure is sweet.
Okay, so I'm trying to save some time by doing this in separate sessions here. So I'm recording this, not quite right after the first round of the NFL draft. I mean, we're more like 8 or 9 hours later. I had to sleep. But yeah, we'll try to go through the draft round by round here. I mean, day 3 picks are going to be more in all one big section. I'm not going to be able, because those go by pretty quickly. Like, they don't really dwell on them that much, so you kind of have to pay attention and just catch them as they go, as they're announced, unless it's a big one, and then they'll do that. But yeah, anyway, the first round will definitely be going pick by pick when we get there. This is just for the intro bit, and obviously the next bit, we'll do round 1 first, then obviously we'll do rounds 2 and 3, and then day 3 it's just going to be one own segment there. I don't know how many commercial breaks there'll be in there, but I got at least 3 planned. There might be more if needed. So, all right, let's get to recapping a very wild first night of the NFL draft.
Introducing the Espresso Mini from Krups. Just the right size to give you delicious espresso, 1 cup at a time, 2 cups at a time, or even 4 cups at a time. Then turn on the steam and watch deep, dark espresso become heavenly cappuccino, as tempting as this. Krups Espresso Mini. It's as simple as black or white.
Available at Coffee Beanery.
It's different down here. Madden NFL 2002 EA Sports. It's in the game.
Rated E for everyone.
Okay, so like I said, this is the first round, and we're going to be recapping all the picks here. It shouldn't be too hard. We'll be going over the trades that happened, and I'll chime in with my analysis in bits and pieces throughout. Okay, so obviously the first one was the no-brainer. The Chicago Bears drafted Caleb Williams. Duh. After that, the Washington Commanders went with Jaden Daniels, and the New England Patriots took Drake May. So even though the Patriots said they weren't interested in drafting a quarterback, they drafted a quarterback. After that, the Arizona Cardinals took Marvin Harrison Jr. The Los Angeles Chargers took Joe Alt, son of Jeff Alt, longtime lineman with the Chiefs. He was a lineman at Notre Dame. Joe Alt was. This is definitely a legacy pick. Should be good to pay off for them. The Tennessee Titans took lineman J.C. Latham out of Alabama. And then we had our first major shocker as the Atlanta Falcons took Michael Penix for some reason. Now, this is not a knock against Penix. It's a perfectly cromulent pick, except, of course, they just paid $100 million for Kirk Cousins in a 4-year contract. So even if, something happens and Penix plays right away, he might not be starting full-time again for at least 2 more years. So you better hope the development window actually pays off on this. It doesn't really make sense. The only way I could possibly rationalize this is Kirk Cousins is coming off a torn Achilles tendon, and maybe he might not be ready by the start of the season. And even then, it's like, you could do something a little cheaper than that. Again, if you wanted to draft Michael Penix Jr., then why not sign Ryan Tannehill or Russell Wilson or someone like that who would have been much cheaper? And, you could have done the exact same thing and it would have worked pretty much the exact same way if that was really what you were going for. Yeah. Okay, again, returning to the draft, the Bears had their second pick of the top 10 and got Rome Aduzier from Washington, the wide receiver. Nice pick for them. They also need to bolster their offensive line a little bit, but a wide receiver is definitely going to help out. After that, we had our first trade. The Minnesota Vikings and New York Jets swap picks. I'll get into the trade details after we announce these picks. But the Minnesota Vikings obviously took J.J. McCarthy, and the New York Jets took... what did I write here? Olomuyiwa Fashanu, left tackle from Penn State. Apologies if I butchered that name. Okay, so going over this trade, obviously the Jets and Vikings swapped first-round picks. The Jets also got the Vikings 4th and 5th round picks, and the Vikings got a 6th-round pick. I think that 5th rounder might be in 2025. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, basically the Vikings pretty much traded their last main picks in the draft. They have some compensatory picks, but you can't trade those, so we'll get to those when we get to them. Returning to the draft, the Denver Broncos took Bo Nix, which left no quarterbacks for the Raiders, so they wound up taking Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia, instead. The New Orleans Saints followed up by taking an offensive lineman, Talise Fuaga, the tackle from Oregon State, who I believe is going to be bumped inside to play guard. Finally, 15 picks into the first round, we had a defensive player taken as the Indianapolis Colts took Latu Latu, defensive end from UCLA. Nice story is he had suffered a very serious neck injury that it seemed like was going to force him to retire, but he managed to come back and now he's in the NFL, so good for him. After that, the Seattle Seahawks took a defensive tackle, Byron Murphy out of Texas. And then we had our next trade with the Minnesota Vikings trading up with the Jacksonville Jaguars to select Dallas Turner, the outside linebacker / edge rusher from the University of Alabama. So yes, we had a bit of a run on defense now. Okay, so again, the parameters of this trade was the Vikings and the Jaguars swapping picks of the first round, and the Jaguars getting a 5th round this year and a 3rd and 4th round in 2025. So yeah, the Vikings gave up a lot to get what they wanted in this draft. Like I said, they have some compensatory picks later on, but that's pretty much it. I think they have one pick, I think tonight, but I may be wrong on that. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it, at least in terms of non-compensatory picks. After that, we had the Cincinnati Bengals taking Amarius Mims, the tackle out of Georgia, the really big tackle out of Georgia. He's like 6'7". After that, we had the Los Angeles Rams taking Jared Verse, defensive end who could be moved inside and play defensive tackle out of Florida State. So there's your Aaron Donald replacement. The Pittsburgh Steelers were next. They selected Troy Fautuna, tackle out of Washington. The Philadelphia Eagles, who could basically make whatever pick they wanted, decided to make the pick they wanted, which was Quinyon Mitchell, the cornerback out of Toledo. I don't know if he's necessarily a shutdown corner, but he definitely has a lot of interceptions and could play the slot. Citing the amount of injuries and overall free agency losses they had on defense, the Miami Dolphins selected Chop Robinson, an outside pass rusher from Penn State. After that, we had the Jacksonville Jaguars pick that they traded with the Vikings, and they took wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. So they got some more weapons for Trevor Lawrence. We had another trade at this point, as the Dallas Cowboys and Detroit Lions swapped picks, with the Lions wind up taking Terrion Arnold, the cornerback out of Alabama. The parameters of the trade are that the Lions got, like I said, Lions-Cowboys swap picks, and Dallas got pick number 73, which I think is in the 3rd round. So they'll be picking another big one tonight. After the Lions pick, the Green Bay Packers were up next, and they took Jordan Morgan, a tackle out of Arizona, who is probably going to get bumped into guard, as he's been injury-prone during his career in college. He's very good at times, but yeah, he was definitely very streaky, so this might have been a bit of a reach for the Packers. After that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were up next, and they selected Graham Barton, a center out of Duke. And by that I mean an offensive football center from Duke, not a basketball post player from Duke. Obviously, Bucs center Ryan Jensen retired this year, so they needed to replace him. This was apparently a good pick, and apparently the Cowboys thought he was still going to be there when they got the Lions pick, so they wound up having to make another one, but we'll get there when we get there. After that, the Arizona Cardinals selected Darius Robinson, a defensive tackle from Missouri, and this was the last player that was in the green room for the first round. So there won't be anyone sitting around waiting on night 2 for a pick. We then had another trade as the Buffalo Bills traded with the Kansas City Chiefs, who selected wide receiver Xavier Worthy, the fastest man at the combine, out of Texas. Yes, it was obviously perplexing that the Bills selected a team that... I'll try this again. Yes, it was oddly perplexing that the Bills elected to trade with Kansas City, the team that eliminated them from the playoffs, and you think they would be gearing up to try to beat. The parameters are pretty simple in this one. They swapped picks. There'll be more to this later when we get there. After that, we had the Dallas Cowboys pick that they got from the Detroit Lions. They were expecting Graham Barton. Instead, they got Tyler Guyton, tackle out of Oklahoma, who, in all likelihood, will either be bumped inside the guard or they're going to bump their current tackle inside the guard. I can't remember. After that, the Baltimore Ravens selected cornerback Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. Not too much to say there, except apparently Dabo Swinney was really lobbying the Ravens to take him. And then the San Francisco 49ers took wide receiver Ricky Pearsall from Florida. The only interesting thing here is, again, the 49ers have yet to trade either Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk, so that might happen either tonight or tomorrow, depending on the way things shake out. Now, you would expect that the Buffalo Bills would finally be making their draft pick at this, but we had one last trade to end the draft. The Carolina Panthers actually got to trade up into the first round, so they got to make a first-round pick, and they selected wide receiver Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina. A man they said they were probably going to take at pick number 33, they instead took at pick number 32. The parameters of this trade, not only did they swap picks, but they also swapped picks 200 and 191. I don't know. I think, the Bills are getting 191 and the Panthers get pick 200. That's really late in the draft, so I don't know what ramifications that could really come from there. But that seems to have settled everything there. And that's your first round. So in case you're wondering, with the Bills pick right now, there's been a lot of rumors that they may trade down yet again, or they might just take a wide receiver at 33. It's unknown just yet. The 33rd pick in the draft, first pick of the second round is what I'm saying there. So we'll see how that shakes out, and we'll be back for night 2 in the next segment, obviously.
The chocolate box from Hershey. Naturally nutritious with that unmistakable Hershey taste. Hershey's genuine chocolate drink.
You know what this is? No, it's not a credit card, it's a checkbook. It doesn't look like one, but this card, the Meyer One card, works just like a checkbook, even better. It gives you checklist checking, so instead of writing checks, you simply use your Meyer One card. You get a receipt for your records, just like that, and you and everybody else get through the checkout a whole lot faster. If you don't have a One card yet, there's a simple way to get one. Just ask. Meyer, the store built on common sense.
The stress headache, relentless, tightening, stretching. When the pain has you at the limit, take Anacin, or aspirin-free Anacin 3. Strong pain relief for today's stress headache.
I don't care if it's preseason. Shoot, Raiders are 4-0, baby.
Raiders? Jeff Garcia. I think he's back in Calgary, playing for the Stampeders.
Of course I didn't draft Drew Brees. What am I, an idiot?
LT's good. Between the 20s.
Last but not least, 2 tickets to the Steelers' home finale against the Ravens. We're sending you out on top, Bob.
We love you, Bob.
Okay, so here we are covering night 2 of the NFL draft. That is the second and third rounds, and ooh boy, there were a lot of trades during this one. So I may have gotten some of them confused and mixed up because there's a lot all over the place that I tried to follow as best I could, and it got away from me a little bit. So bear with me. There's gonna be some mistakes in this one. Going into the night, it was thought the Bills might actually trade down from the 33rd pick, but they didn't. Instead, they took wide receiver Keon Benjamin from Florida State. It's then that we had our first trade of the evening, as the New England Patriots traded with the Los Angeles Chargers, who took Ladd McConkey, a wide receiver from Georgia. The parameters of the trade was obviously a swap of picks. It also included the New England Patriots getting a 4th rounder from the Chargers, and the Chargers getting a 5th rounder from the New England Patriots. By the way, the rest of these trades are going to be numbers instead of rounds, so that's just kind of how I wound up catching them. They went by so fast on NFL Network, I had to look them up on ESPN's Draft Tracker, which even then didn't always get them up right away. After that, we had yet another trade, as the Arizona Cardinals traded with the Atlanta Falcons, who drafted Rook Orororo, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. The parameters of that trade were obviously another swap of picks. Also, Arizona got the 79th pick and Atlanta got the 186th pick. The pick the Patriots got from the Chargers when they swapped was up next, and the Patriots selected wide receiver Jalen Polk out of Washington. After that, it was the Tennessee Titans who took defensive tackle Devontae Sweat out of Texas. After that, we had yet another trade as the Carolina Panthers swapped picks with the Los Angeles Rams, who then moved all the way up from pick number 52 to take defensive tackle Braden Fisk from Florida State. The parameters not only included the swapping of the picks, but also the Carolina Panthers getting pick number 155 and a second-round pick in 2025's draft. However, this is going to wind up playing out a little bit later when we'll get to that. We had yet another trade after that, as the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles made a trade in the division, with the Eagles taking cornerback Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. The parameters in trade again included the swapping of picks, Philadelphia getting the 78th and 161st pick, and Washington getting the 53rd and 152nd pick. And it turns out that the Green Bay Packers really wanted Cooper DeJean. He was kind of a hot prospect coming out of Iowa. He was like the 4th or 5th highest ranked cornerback, and also he's the white guy. There's a little bit more to it than that. But he was fairly highly regarded. So with this happening, obviously when they realized the Eagles were going to pick him, the Packers immediately made a trade with the Saints for their pick instead. The New Orleans Saints used that pick on cornerback Kool-Aid McKenzie, from Alabama. In addition to the swapping of picks, Green Bay also got picks 168 and 190 from the Saints. After that, the Houston Texans took Kamari Likes, defensive back from Georgia. After that, the Cardinals, with the pick they switched with the Falcons, took defensive back Max Melton out of Rutgers. The Las Vegas Raiders took Jackson Power Johnson, guard from Oregon. The Green Bay Packers then took Edgerrin Cooper, a linebacker from Texas A&M. The New York Giants took Tyler Nubin, a safety out of Minnesota. Also, yes, I am aware I got things a little backwards because we had yet another trade at this point that confused me, as the Carolina Panthers made a trade with the Indianapolis Colts to get their pick, who turned out to be Jonathan Brooks, the running back out of Texas. In addition to the swapping of picks, the Colts got the Panthers' 142nd pick, as well as the 155th pick they had just gotten from the Rams. It was then, with one of the picks they got from the Philadelphia Eagles, the Washington Commanders selected tight end Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State. We finally got another non-trade again, as the Pittsburgh Steelers selected center Zach Fraser from West Virginia. We then get to the Colts pick that used to be the Panthers pick that was the Rams pick initially, and the Colts drafted Adonai Mitchell, a wide receiver out of Texas. After that, the Cleveland Browns drafted Michael Hall, a defensive tackle out of Ohio State. The Miami Dolphins picked Patrick Paul, a tackle out of Houston. And the Dallas Cowboys selected Marshawn Nealand, a defensive end out of Western Michigan. From there, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafted linebacker Chris Braswell out of Alabama. The Green Bay Packers then took safety Javon Bullard out of Washington. The Houston Texans took Blake Fisher, a tackle out of Notre Dame. Buffalo Bills took Cole Bishop, a safety out of Utah. The Detroit Lions took Eric Reckeshaw Jr., a cornerback out of Missouri. A cornerback, that is, out of Missouri. The Baltimore Ravens then took Roger Rosengarten, a tackle from Washington. There was then one last trade in the second round, seeing the last two teams, the 49ers and Chiefs, swapping places. The Chiefs moved up a spot to take Kinsley Shumatea, a tackle out of Pitt, and the 49ers took Renardo Green, another defensive back that is out of FSU. In addition to swapping picks, the 49ers got the 173rd pick and the Chiefs got the 221st pick. And that concludes at least the look at the second round. We'll obviously be moving on to the third round pretty shortly here, but overall, not exactly a lot in the way of splashes, just a lot more in the way of trades. Even then, they weren't exactly splashy trades, just a lot of teams maneuvering around, trying to find the right guys. Obviously, in these rounds, you're finding more of the foundation to build the team on rather than the star attraction player. Like I said, there weren't any real holdovers from last night. The green room was completely empty, so there was a lot of, just guys talking on the phone reacting. And to do that, they started to do the special things like bringing back certain players to do the announcements and everything. And, I'm all for that, but sometimes these things go on a little too long. Guys don't understand they're not supposed to fill the time up with a lot of speeches. But I'm okay with the little speeches here and there, but when they go on for like 2 minutes, there's kind of a just say the dang pick aspect to it that I really wish the NFL would get a better handle on. By the way, if you thought the trading was done for the night, you would be wrong, as quite literally, as we started the third round, the Carolina Panthers traded out of the top spot with the New York Jets, who selected wide receiver Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. In addition to swapping picks with the Panthers, the Jets also got the Panthers pick at 157. After that, the Arizona Cardinals took running back Trey Benson out of Florida State. The Washington Commanders took tackle Brandon Coleman out of TCU. The New England Patriots took Caden Walker, a tackle out of Penn State. The Los Angeles Chargers took Junior Colson, a linebacker out of Michigan, much to the delight of Rich Eisen, and obviously a homegrown pick for Jim Harbaugh. The New York Giants took Andrew Phillips, cornerback out of Kentucky. The next pick was the Arizona Cardinals taking Isaiah Adams, a guard from Illinois. The Carolina Panthers then used the pick they swapped with the New York Jets to draft cornerback Travis Wallace out of Kentucky. After that, the Dallas Cowboys took Cooper Beal, a guard from Kansas State. The Atlanta Falcons took Braylon Trice, a linebacker out of Washington. After that, the Chicago Bears took tackle Kieran Amijade, apologies if I mispronounced that by the way, out of Yale. The Denver Broncos took Jonah Ellis, a linebacker out of Utah. The Las Vegas Raiders took Delman Glaze, a tackle out of Maryland. And here's where things get weird again. There were a couple of trades. The Houston Texans moved up to draft Kalen Bullock, a safety out of USC. For some reason, I thought this pick was with the Falcons, but it may have actually been with the Eagles. After that, there was a pick that may have been with Washington that got traded to the Colts, but I also said this was an Eagles pick. I think I may have gotten this confused with the pick with the trade the two teams had made earlier. I may have confused it. Not helping the matters is that when I started round 3, for some reason, instead of continuing on from number 64 like I did, for the first 2 rounds I did 1 through 32, 33 through 64. I should have started with 65 through 97 buttons, well actually up to 100 because there were compensatory picks, but I digress. I should have started that way. Instead, I for some reason started with 1, 2, 3, 4 again, so that might be where I got a little crossed up. Anyway, like I said, the Texans took Kalen Bullock, a safety out of USC. The Colts then took Matt Goncalves, a tackle out of Pitt. The Cincinnati Bengals then took Jermaine Burton, a wide receiver out of Alabama. The Seattle Seahawks took Christian Haynes, a guard from UConn. And then the Arizona Cardinals, who I guess were the team that traded with the Colts earlier, took Tip Raymond, a tight end out of Illinois. That tight end the Cardinals took, by the way, he apparently does not believe in birds, which that's probably a rabbit hole just not worth going down. Anyway, the Los Angeles Rams were up next, and this began the Michigan rush as they took Blake Corum, the running back, much to Rich Eisen's delight. The Pittsburgh Steelers were up right after that. They took Ramon Wilson, a wide receiver from Michigan, much to Rich Eisen's delight. And the Cleveland Browns followed that up with Zach Inter, a guard from Michigan, much to Rich Eisen's delight. We then had what I believe is our last trade of the evening, as the Eagles pick they acquired from the Texans then got traded to the 49ers. The 49ers then took Dominic Pune, a guard from Kansas. Sorry, my handwriting is not very good there. I apologize if I mispronounced that name. We then became Night of the Living Nickelbacks, as after the draft then became Night of the Living Nickelbacks, as after the Dallas Cowboys drafted The night then became Night of the Living Nickelbacks, as after the Dallas Cowboys drafted Maris Leotow, a linebacker from Notre Dame, the Green Bay Packers took Marshawn Lloyd, running back from USC. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers then took a nickelback, Tyke Smith out of Georgia. The Arizona Cardinals then took a nickelback, Elijah Jonas out of Boston College. The Green Bay Packers then took a linebacker, a Tyron Hopper out of Missouri is what I'm trying to say there. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers then took Jalen McMillan, a wide receiver out of Washington. The Baltimore Ravens followed up by drafting Andre Isaac, a linebacker out of Penn State. The Buffalo Bills took Dwayne Carter, a defensive tackle out of Duke. The Eagles took Jalen Hunt. This is the pick they traded with the 49ers. Hunt is a linebacker out of Houston Christian. We then moved on to the compensatory picks as the Jacksonville Jaguars took Jerrion Jones, a cornerback out of Florida State. The Cincinnati Bengals took McKinley Jackson, a defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. The Pittsburgh Steelers took Peyton Wilson, a linebacker out of NC State. The Los Angeles Rams took Cameron Kinches, a tackle out of Miami. And to round things off, we had the Washington Commanders take Luke McCaffrey, a wide receiver out of Rice. Yes, that is Christian McCaffrey's younger brother, a former quarterback who eventually had to convert to wide receiver because he didn't really play quarterback very well. He bounced around a little bit. He was at Michigan and then Nebraska and eventually wound up at Rice, which, yeah, is one of the weirder aspects of that. So, yes, that concludes night 2 of the NFL Draft. Obviously, we're going to be moving on to day 3. That's going to be pretty much in the afternoon. That's all morning and afternoon stuff. We'll probably do the 4th round pick by pick, but then the 3 rounds after that, 5, 6, and 7, it's going to be more noteworthy stuff after that because, once they get there and once they get into those rounds, picks kind of go by really quickly in rapid fire, so you could wind up missing some. A lot of times, though, it's just, they're talking, and then you get pick selection, and then it just kind of sits there on the ticker for the whole time. So, yeah, I think at some point I'm probably going to have to look and do something a little more official timey, like maybe use the NFL.com tracker or something to that effect. So we'll see you all then.
Well, did the doctor say you'd need surgery?
No, he said my hemorrhoids aren't that serious. And to use Preparation H.
You can often relieve pain and itch for hours and help shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissues with Preparation H in ointment and suppositories.
Little kitty kitties, polish pods, they love to play all day. Polish pods kitties have nails you can change.
Nails change in warm or icy water.
Polish pods kitties, pretty pet. I really love you best. Cherry Mary Muffin, she looks sweet, cooks sweet, smells sweet too. Cherry! With Cherry Mary Muffin, you can party all day. Her pie turns into the pastry cafe.
Cherry Mary Muffin dolls and pastry cafe sold separately.
Sure, you've got places to go, people to see, but why not pop over to Burger King and find out how to join the Kids Club?
Details are specified in the Kids Club newsletter.
So if you're just hanging out, why not pop into Burger King and find out how to join the Kids Club?
Let's get off the field right now! Yeah! Sooner or later, you're gonna have to play football, big boy. Just snap the ball. Is this what you want? This belongs to the defense. Let's go!
10 yards has never seemed so far. Now you will fear the D. Madden NFL 2005, rated E for everyone. EA Sports. It's in the game.
Okay, so we're obviously talking about day 3 of the NFL Draft here. We're going to recap the 4th round pick by pick as that went kind of by normally. And then the subsequent rounds 5 through 7 were kind of rapid fire a little bit. They didn't, stop to announce the picks all the time. They did a few times, but, we'll get to there. We'll get there. We'll go through the noteworthy picks. Also, we'll stop highlighting trades as much. Like a few happened, which I'll touch on, but I won't go into huge detail. Like I said, we'll basically be going through noteworthy picks, and there really weren't that many in the 6th and 7th rounds. Just I'm going to say right now, I tried to compensate for teams that didn't get a lot of draft picks early on by covering them more in the later rounds when they did have draft picks. Also, there's probably going to be like another commercial break in here, and needed to probably get some more footage. I think I'm right on the verge of having to recycle footage with how long these are going to be taking. So, yeah. So it's probably out a little bit later than I initially intended. Okay, so starting off the fourth round, we had the Carolina Panthers taking Jadavion Sanders, a tight end from Texas. The Seattle Seahawks then traded with the Denver Broncos, who got that pick, and I'll get into the parameters in just a second here. The Broncos took Troy Franklin, the wide receiver out of Oregon, who was Bo Nix's number one target, so you get a bit of a reunion now in Denver. Now, in addition to swapping picks, Seattle also got picks 136 and 207, and Denver got pick 235. After that, the New England Patriots took guard Leighton Robinson out of Texas A&M. The Arizona Cardinals took Adrian Taylor Demerson, a safety from Texas Tech. The Los Angeles Chargers then took Justin Iboigbe, a defensive tackle from Alabama. The Tennessee Titans took Cedric Gray, a linebacker from North Carolina. The New York Giants took Theo Johnson, a tight end out of Penn State. The Minnesota Vikings popped up again for the first time in 48 hours. They took Kyrie Jackson, a cornerback out of Oregon. After that, the Atlanta Falcons took Brayton Dorlus, a defensive tackle out of Oregon. The New England Patriots took Javon Baker out of UCF. The Green Bay Packers then made a trade with the New York Jets, and the Packers wound up taking Evan Williams, a safety out of Oregon. In addition to swapping picks with the Jets, the Packers also picked up the 190th pick in the draft. The Las Vegas Raiders then took Cameron Richardson, a cornerback out of Mississippi State. The Baltimore Ravens took Devontae Walker, a wide receiver out of North Carolina. The Jacksonville Jaguars took Javon Foster, a tackle out of Missouri. And the Cincinnati Bengals took Eric All, a tight end out of Iowa. After that, it was the Jacksonville Jaguars again, taking Jordan Jefferson, a defensive tackle out of Louisiana State. After that, it was the Indianapolis Colts, who took Tanner Bellini, a center out of Wisconsin. The Seattle Seahawks were up next. They took Tyrese Knight, a linebacker out of UTEP. And that was followed by the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Mason McCormick, a guard from South Dakota State. That was followed by the Miami Dolphins making a trade with Philadelphia Eagles to move up and take Jalen Wright, a running back out of Tennessee. In this case, the trade did not include a swap of picks. Instead, the Eagles just get a fifth-round pick in 2025. That was followed by the Seattle Seahawks after their trade with the Denver Broncos, taking tight end A.J. Barner out of Michigan. It was here that the Bears finally made a return to the NFL draft by selecting Torrey Taylor, a punter out of Iowa. The Houston Texans then traded up with the Philadelphia Eagles to take Cade Stover, a tight end out of Ohio State. This was a swapping of picks, with the Eagles also getting a fifth-round pick in 2025. Again. That was followed by the San Francisco 49ers taking Wake Forest safety Malik Mustafa. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selected Oregon running back Buddy Irving. So, you remember that pick that the Green Bay Packers traded to the New York Jets? Well, the New York Jets decided to trade that pick to the Detroit Lions, who selected Giovanni Manu, a tackle out of Boston College. This was not a swapping of picks. Instead, the Jets get a third-rounder in 2025. We are now at the pick where the Eagles traded with the Texans, and the Eagles selected Will Shipley, the running back out of Clemson. The Buffalo Bills followed that by drafting another running back, Ray Davis, out of Kentucky. We then had yet another trade involving the New York Jets, who this time switched places with the 49ers. The 49ers then selected Isaac Rondo, a running back out of Louisville. Outside of the compensatory pick, the Jets basically traded out of this round, instead getting picks 173 and 176. The Baltimore Ravens then took defensive back T.J. Tampa out of Iowa State. And yes, this is the humorous aspect, as Rich Eisen noticed that his name is T.J. Tampa, and he forswears the number 2. We then had another trade, this one involving the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions. The Lions wound up drafting Sione Vaki, a running back / safety from Utah. This did not involve a swapping of picks. Instead, the Eagles also gave up the 210th pick, and then the Lions gave up picks 164, 202, and a fourth-round pick in 2025. After that, the Kansas City Chiefs selected safety out of Washington State, Jaden Hicks. The New York Jets took Braylon Allen, a running back out of Wisconsin, and the 49ers closed out the round by selecting wide receiver out of Arizona, Jacob Cowing. A few picks after that, the Buffalo Bills selected Cedric Von Pran Granger, a center out of Georgia. They had another pick shortly after that one too, however they traded that to Chicago, who selected Austin Booker, a defensive end out of Kansas. The Las Vegas Raiders then selected Tommy Eichenberg, a linebacker out of Ohio State. And then we finally got the big shoe to drop here, as we finally had a quarterback selected outside the first round. And that quarterback would be Spencer Rattler out of the University of South Carolina, who was taken in the 5th round by the New Orleans Saints. It was projected that maybe Rattler would go in either the 2nd or 3rd round. However, it appears that apparently he still has a bad reputation from a bad Netflix reality series he started when he was 17 years old. Go figure. On the, maybe Jaguar Gator 9 got a little bit of happiness news. Jacksonville selected Deontay Prince, a cornerback out of Ole Miss. He had been lobbying for a long time for a defensive back, and they got at least one. The Cleveland Browns then made a return to the NFL draft by selecting wide receiver out of Louisville, Jamari Thrash. The Eagles made a trade with the Colts for a pick, and they got the 164th and 201st pick, which the Eagles then used to select Jeremiah Trotter Jr. And at this point, I'm kind of tired of talking about the Eagles and Jets, so any further trades they made, I am just not going to cover anymore. After that, the Packers made another trade with the Bills in order to select Jacob Monk, a center out of Duke. Again, this is the football type of center, not the basketball type of center. And rounding things off, the Dallas Cowboys also made a return to the NFL draft, selecting Kalen Carson, a cornerback out of Wake Forest. Alright, we're going to take a little bit of a break here and then come back with the final 2 rounds, then another break, and then we'll wrap things up.
This holiday, don't panic. Corey's Holiday Clearance has everything on sale. Dinettes, bars, stools, entertainment centers, and more. This gleaming brass 5-foot baker's rack, don't panic, it's only $24.88. In this elegant ebony and brass 5-piece dining set, don't panic, it's only $3.88. These 4 deluxe upholstered brewer chairs, don't panic, now 4 for $88. This holiday, don't panic. Hurry to Corey's Holiday Clearance Sale. All locations.
Masterpieces. They must be priceless.
No, they're not. They're free when you buy a Burger King Kids Club meal. You get 6 Crayola crayons and a Kids Club coloring book.
Well, it's lovely art.
Thanks, but my name's not Art.
IBM presents You Make the Call. Just after Neil Lomax of the Cardinals has thrown a pass downfield, a Buccaneer blitzer who had been attempting to block the pass strikes a glancing blow to the side of the quarterback's helmet. Now, you make the call. Is this illegal action by the Buccaneer blitzer?
It is the year 2000. But where are the flying cars? I was promised flying cars. I don't see any flying cars. Why? Because billions of people all over the world can work together on the web 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't need flying cars, but you will need a different kind of software. It's a different kind of world. You need a different kind of software.
Never permissible to strike any player in the head at any time.
Take away LaDainian, the Chargers got nothing.
Excuse me, Greg? Yeah, we got issues with your thesis. Frankly, I'm offended. And you don't want to offend Mr. Gates.
Has this ever been you, busted for exaggerating your football knowledge? With NFL Game Day, help is on the way.
After the Sunday night game, flip over to Rich and the Gang for the best NFL highlight show on TV. Maximize your football knowledge. Watch NFL Game Day on NFL Network.
Okay, we're obviously now in the 6th round, where, again, there's not too much to really get into here. Again, we're only going through noteworthy picks. And there's really only one trade to talk about, and that's because it kind of irked me a little bit. Anyway, the Minnesota Vikings opened up the 6th round, which allowed them to select Walter Rouse, a tackle out of the University of Oklahoma. A few picks later, the Miami Dolphins re-entered the draft, selecting wide receiver Malik Washington of the University of Virginia. The Atlanta Falcons had back-to-back picks, selecting Chase McClellan, a running back out of Alabama, and Casey Washington, a wide receiver out of Illinois. It was then that the Houston Texans were supposed to have back-to-back picks, but then they traded one to the Lions, which ruined everything. We would have back-to-back picks. It would have been hilarious. Anyway, the Texans selected Jamal Hill, a linebacker out of Oregon, and the Lions selected Mekhi Wingo, a defensive tackle out of LSU. This is like the 8th LSU defensive tackle selected, by the way. How many did they have that were draft eligible? The New England Patriots then made a somewhat surprising maneuver by selecting another quarterback in the form of Joel Milton III out of Tennessee. The Minnesota Vikings got a second pick in the 6th round as well, as they selected Will Reichert, a kicker out of Alabama. This actually started a mini run on kickers, as the Rams and Jacksonville Jaguars also selected kickers, and I believe there were 2 more that were selected in the 7th round. We are going to touch on the Jets one last time as they actually traded up to select Jordan Travis, the quarterback out of Florida State, who would have probably led that team to the playoffs had he not broken his ankle late in the season. It's then that we move on to the 7th round. The Buffalo Bills open the round by selecting Travis Clayton, a tackle from the United Kingdom. The Chargers wound up selecting Brandon Rice, that's Jerry Rice's son. The Cleveland Browns selected Miles Harden, a defensive back out of the University of South Dakota. The Vikings also had 2 picks in the 7th round, selecting Michael Juergens, a center out of Wake Forest, and Levi Drake Rodriguez, a defensive tackle out of Texas A&M Commerce. We then had a run on Michigan picks, which pushed, I believe, their entire draft total up to about 15. Which is a new school record, and I think maybe a new overall record. I want to say there was one where Georgia had like 17. I think Michigan was just a little short of hitting that. So, yeah, I think they had the second most picks in the draft. And rounding things off, the Jets had Mr. Irrelevant. They did not select a quarterback like I thought they would. Instead, they selected Jalen Key, a safety out of the University of Alabama. It was thought that with the Mr. Irrelevant pick that the Jets would maybe take A.J. Simon, the University of Albany player, who was projected to be drafted, who sadly died in I believe it was in a car accident just earlier, I think in the last week or so. You know, they did a similar thing the previous year with the 3 Virginia players who were sadly shot and killed. They drafted those players even though they didn't really need to. But with Mr. Irrelevant, I think it's a little different. That ward's kind of irreverent. It's kind of goofy. Like, you get a parade and a steak dinner and stuff like that. And I don't think it would be entirely appropriate to do that with someone who just died. Even if you're doing it to the family as a nice gesture, it could still be seen as maybe in bad taste. So I think picking a different player was probably the better option there. Anyway, that concludes our look at the 2024 NFL Draft, my first such attempt at this. I originally was actually going to do something like this way back in 2015, but time just kind of away from me. The draft was held a little bit later back then. It was actually held in, I want to say, early to mid-May. I think it's nice they at least back up to late April. It makes a little bit more sense. As for who won this draft, well, I think you're going to see a lot of stuff with pretty much all of the NFC North, I think, won. I think all of those teams improved, which means it might be that much harder to win. It's made now even tougher. I think a lot of the NFC East did. I think the Giants improved, the Eagles improved, and even the Commanders improved. If there's a team that didn't there, it's, well, the Dallas Cowboys, which is making you wonder what exactly this whole all-in thing Jerry Jones said was going to happen is happening. Like, I guess by all in, he means you're going to operate with about a third less of the offensive weapons you had, and I expect you to at least reach the same levels of success or exceed them? That seems counterintuitive. Another team I'd say that won the draft is the Arizona Cardinals, just on the sheer amount of picks they got. They got like 12 players. I mean, even if they only hit on a third of those picks, that could still make them a really good team for quite some time. On the AFC side, I think it's kind of hard to judge. I mean, I think, again, a lot of teams got better. I think Pittsburgh greatly improved. I think, Houston, with the offseason deals they made, they still had a pretty decent draft as well. I would say if there was a team that underachieved, it would probably be the Raiders. They obviously did not get a quarterback when they probably need one, which means they're going to be, swapping between O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, throughout the season, which is going to probably lead to some struggles. And they're going to have to try to angle for a quarterback next year, which don't know what the QB crop next year is necessarily going to look like. So, yeah, I think overall they're probably in the loser category, unfortunately. If I had any critiques of the presentation, again, it's just stuff like, I like the ceremony and pageantry and stuff like that, but you sometimes do need to rein it in. You need to explain to some of the celebrity pickers or the guest pickers or the international fans that you can do a little speech, but try to keep it as short as possible. You can't go up there and ramble for 3 minutes, which happened on several occasions. Also, I watched on NFL Network, and there were a lot of times the draft ticker just froze. Like, it would say the pick was in, and then it would just sit there and sit there and sit there. Like, we can't reveal it at this time, even though they had revealed several of the same picks in a different manner. They had just pretty much rifled them right up as soon as they were up there. And the fact that one time this happened during Rich Eisen's Run Rich Run segment, which I respect Eisen for everything he does for that, and the cause, St. Jude's Hospital, is great. I am not belittling that, but at the same time, while I'm waiting for this pick to come up so I can write it down, it's just sitting there. Like, you could have either A, taken the ticker off the clock and, just told people to go online if they want to track the draft, or just do something else. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't want to be a distraction, that's fine, but then don't have it just sit there because it's also distracting. Okay, we'll come back after the last break here and wrap things up with what's coming up next. Okay, so the next video is going to be the random trade review on Punisher Kill Crew, and right now I'm thinking that's probably going to be coming out on Wednesday, May 1st. This whole draft thing took a lot longer than I thought it would. I thought I was going to streamline things and get things done. I thought this was going to be 4 audio bits, and it wound up being 6. It's got a little out of hand on me. And not only that, I'm restarting my job on Monday, so again, there's going to be a lot of upheaval. I have it scripted. I was going to shoot the on-camera bits tonight, but again, with how long this is taking to do, that's probably out of the question. I'll have to shoot them on Monday instead, which means I'll probably have to record on Monday, and I'll have to do the editing on Tuesday. So yeah, it's probably going to be Wednesday, maybe even Thursday. After that, it'll be the review for X-Men 97. I think that season might actually be complete by the time I get that done, so hopefully that'll at least come out in a relatively easy bit of time. There'll probably be another Madden video when the NFL schedule is announced. Wrestling, Backlash is on Saturday. It's in France, and I think it's at noon, or is it at 2? So it might be up a little bit later after the show is concluded, depending on when I can get to that start, because Saturday is also free comic book day. But again, hopefully everything will come out in a relatively easy amount of time. See you all next time. Hey guys, remember that you can support my work at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcat productions. Also, remember to like, comment, share, subscribe to my channel, and ring that notification bell so that way you can be alerted to further videos.